So, are you a local champion or part of the Pan-African gang? That's a word or a phrase that I stole from Vimbai. Thanks, babe. So, recently, one of my biggest goals for the next few years has been to become a Pan-African brand on a global stage. But I didn't always think like this, and I don't think that a lot of Nigerians or Ghanaians particularly think like this. Because when we start businesses, we tend to think, okay, do you know what? I want to scale in Nigeria, which is great. But I think that we have such a powerful continent that is Africa, where if we exchange our cultures and connect our economies, we can grow. Our growth potential is immense. Think about if House of Tara was somewhere like South Africa. They can sell so many products in Nigeria, but imagine scaling to that part of Africa, how much bigger the market would be. So, funny story. I launched the book in August 2016, and then in October 2016, a girl called Samke Ngwenya, a crazy girl called Samke Ngwenya, who was a private banker at Investec in South Africa and was doing personal finance as well, and she was doing commentary in the media and things like that. She reached out to me on Twitter. I still maintain, Samke, that I did not see that tweet. But okay, so her story was this. She was talking to someone that she met via the Grassa Michelle Foundation, a South African woman who was married to a Nigerian, and she was telling her all her goals and aspirations and how she wanted to build her brand as a personal finance expert in South Africa. And the woman goes to her, oh, if you're serious about this, go and do your research about this girl called Arese Ugu. Yay me. I felt so fancy when she told me this. She said, do your research. Samke went, Googled me, watched all my videos, read my articles, read my book, and then basically tried to reach out to me via Twitter. When that failed, she literally went up to every Nigerian woman that she knew via Grassa Michelle, which is basically like their Wimbiz in South Africa, and said, hi, do you know one girl called Arese Ugu? I know that there are 200 million people in your country, but I really want to meet her. Crazy person. So she was like, by the sixth woman, the person was like, oh, you know what? I actually know her family, so I can do an email introduction. She did that. We started to connect via email, then WhatsApp. And then Samke was like, you know what? I really want you to bring your book tour to South Africa. At this point, I was like, girl, who is going to pay for that? That sounds really expensive. And to be honest, if I think about it now in retrospect, I was scared because the South African market was not something that I understood. And I thought, first of all, I don't know that there's a market there, and I need every tour stop to be profitable. At that point, I had done several cities in Nigeria and Ghana, and I hoped to do London and the US at some point, but South Africa was just not something that I was looking at. Because I thought, who's going to pay for it? Is there a big Nigerian community there that would, I would have access to XYZ? Anyway, so Samke, she keeps trying to convince me. Then I start thinking about the fact that I had actually thought about attending or going to the Essence Festival, which was holding for the first time in Durban in South Africa, for the first time in Africa, period. So I said this to her, and she goes, actually, do you know what? The exhibition has closed, so you can't exhibit your books anymore, but let me look into it. Give me a few days. So this girl goes, does her research on who the PR company for the Essence Festival in South Africa is, and basically pitches my brand to them, convinces them to open up the exhibition, and then pays with her own money for me to exhibit at Essence Festival. At this point, I was like, bruh, this girl, means business. So if anything, I'm just going to go for Essence, it'll make sense. So I buy a ticket. Then I reach out to the South African Tourism Board because I had started having, some kind of communication with them at that point to see what they could do to provide hotel accommodation for me in Durban. And thanks, Holoni, they sorted me out. Then Samke sends me an itinerary of all the things I was going to do in South Africa. 2 things, media, and then an event in Johannesburg as well to launch the book. Now, on this itinerary, she had me booked SABC 1, which is prime time in SA, Business Day TV, Power FM, and then she convinced Dr. Judy Dalmini, who is one of the most accomplished black women I've ever met. Hint, she was on the cover of Forbes Africa this year. Yeah. She convinced her to let me host my book launch at her store, which is called Luminance in Hyde Park. Fancy store, amazing. I don't know how Sam K managed to do this, but she worked it out. And it was awesome. Then we did Essence, it was fun. So now, that collaboration, it wasn't easy. I don't want to like make it sound like, oh yeah, it was like easy peasy and stuff. I know the pictures look fun on Instagram, but it was a lot of hard work and mishaps. In fact, we fought. The thing I realized was me and Sam K were like twins. She's like my South African twin. We're so similar in certain regards, but we're so different. For example, Sam K had this thing where she came from a very structured environment. South Africa is very structured, and she's a banker. So things work a certain way. So every time something was going wrong, she'd freak out and get emotional and cry. And I'm like, girl, calm down. And I had a completely different attitude to it because I'm from Nigeria where nothing works. And I'm used to eating problems for breakfast. If something goes wrong, it's okay, what's plan B? If plan B goes wrong, what's plan C? We're used to rolling with the punches. So that's something that, she learned from me. Let me tell you what I learned from her. She's a go-getter. Like, I have never seen somebody so forward in my life. Like, Sam K has no qualms about going for what she wants, regardless of what it looks like. Let me give you an example. So at the time, I was one of the brand influencers for Remy Martin. And Remy Martin obviously has an office in South Africa. So I reached out to them to say, okay, do you know what? Can you guys sponsor drinks for this event I'm doing in South Africa? They reached out to their South African people, but it was taking a while to sort of hear back from them. Sam K now calls me and goes, girl, I'm tired of waiting. Like, I really want to just find another drink sponsor. So I'm going to reach out to Laurent Perrier. Do you know that Sam K sent these people an email in French? This girl can't speak French. I don't know how she did it. But anyway, they came back and they say no. And she calls me and she's super upset. And I'm like, calm down. I'm sure Remy Martin will come through. A day or two later, I wake up in the morning. Sam K had basically like found another inroad into Laurent Perrier, gone to have a face-to-face meeting with the person, and somehow bullied them into sponsoring the events with drinks. And then basically, they came with all the bells and whistles, a bar, like lots of drinks. It was amazing. Waiters, it was crazy. So that was great. Then Remy Martin called back and then she goes, well, we already have a drink sponsor, but you can sponsor our Durban trip by, paying for our banners, our XYZ. Like, she was fully on it. I would have never had the guts to ask for so much. So sometimes when I'm being pushy or I'm, wanting to get a certain result, I think, what will Sam K do? Like, she's not afraid to network and ask anyone for anything or, go and sit at the front of a conference where it clearly says reserved or VIP. She's something else. So I've learned a lot from her as well. So instead of, as Africans, when we're collaborating, instead of focusing on what's different about us, we need to focus on what is similar and what we can learn from each other and build on that. Another thing is we were very clear about our expectations. To be honest, going to South Africa to go and meet with a stranger to create like a business partnership was tough for me. It was scary. All my friends thought I was crazy. But we had a conversation via Skype so that we could lay out our expectations prior to me coming to SA. So Sam K was like, I'm pretty sure you're scared and you think this girl is crazy. She just met me on the internet and she wants me to do all of this stuff. But this is what I want. She was like, Arese, there's a gap in the South African market for a young black, South African personal finance person. And I basically want to be you in SA in 18 to 24 months. And I reckon that if we work together, if we collaborate, I will learn faster. At this point, I'm like, I don't know who this girl thinks I am, but whatever you need, like whatever you want to learn from me, whatever access you need to my network, I'm willing to give it because you're also creating, value as in like that. So we've exchanged value. We were clear about what we wanted to do. And I have to say that that's one of the best partnerships that's opened like amazing doors for me. Recently, for example, I've been to South Africa a lot more since then. recently I got invited by a company to come and speak for Women's Month at the Women in Work conference. They were paying for my ticket and one night hotel. And I thought, amazing, but it'll be great to take advantage of Women's Month and push my smart money brand there. So how can I do this? Because anybody got money to pay for a hotel for 2 weeks, and I wanted to stay for 2 weeks. I used it as an opportunity to take Zocora as well. So I decided to leverage on a relationship that was made possible by South African Tourism Board with Sun International. So I had met Didier on one of the trips, and he works at Sun International. He's a marketing manager. And so I call him and say, listen, I want to do XYZ. And basically, Sun International went into a brand partnership with me and allowed me to stay at their fabulous hotels, the Maslow in Johannesburg and Sun City, for 2 weeks in total. So it was so amazing. It's opened up partnerships like that for me. I'm in talks with a publisher in South Africa. We're negotiating, a contract right now to publish the book in South Africa, which is exciting. May or may not happen, but still an opportunity. Like, I've met the most amazing people. So just by responding to that one, contact or taking advantage of that one collaboration. So guess who else does collaborations like that to build their brands and expand their market potential? Entertainers. So people like Arese have partnered with people like DJ Maphorisa in South Africa, with Vanessa Mdee in Tanzania, to make music and build their brands across Africa. When we went on the Tourism South Africa trips, people like John Dumelo, Jackie Appiah, they're well known everywhere we go because their brands translate across the continent, not just in their own countries, which opens up brand opportunities for them. Now the question is, are you a local champion, which is not necessarily a bad thing, or are you looking at other African countries? Who is doing what you're doing in another African country, and how can you collaborate with that person? Social media has made it so much easier for us to make these things happen. So who is doing what you're doing in another African country, and how can you collaborate with them to exchange value that will help you build your brand across the continent and increase your market potential? Food for thought, guys. I was looking at something today and I realized in Nigeria, there are a lot of South African brands. MTN, ShopRite, SAB Miller, and they're very prominent in Nigeria. But I can't name any Nigerian brands that are very prominent in South Africa. What are we doing wrong? And we can say xenophobia. If you tell me xenophobia, my answer to you is going to be Boko Haram. Globally, a lot of the stuff that we're in the news for as Nigerians is Boko Haram, unfortunately. But it does not define us as a country. Neither does xenophobia define South Africa as a country. So, and Nigeria is a pretty difficult country to do business in. Fact, way more difficult than it is to do business in South Africa, if we're being honest, because there's the infrastructure and everything. So how is it that they've been able to take advantage of our market and we haven't been able to scale past our markets into theirs? These are things that we need to be thinking about. And mind you, I will say again, Nigeria is a very difficult country to do business in because things like Woolworths and Tiger Brands and quite a few companies have come here, tried their luck to take advantage of the market potential and failed and had to go back to South Africa. And it's taking, and maybe even taking a hit in their market share. But, so that illustrates my point that it's not everyone that comes here that makes it. But how come we're not doing more to go to their country, even if, regardless of the obstacles? So guys, let's start figuring out how to collaborate, how to expand our market and potential outside of our individual countries. And let's start learning how to celebrate everything that is, similar about us, as opposed to concentrating on things that are different or that, set us apart, and then figuring out how to learn from each other and exchange value, exchange cultures, and build Africa. I look forward to a borderless continent. Tell me what you guys think about this episode. Leave your comments in the comment section. Follow me on Instagram. I can't wait to continue this conversation.